Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently working on a Gemini-style lunar landing mission, which is quite a concept. It's probably going to take us a few episodes to get this one done, because we're going to have to get two craft into an orbit around the moon. Perhaps we target a polar orbit right away. I'm not sure. But then we're going to have to rendezvous around the moon, and then land at opposite poles. We'll need to get into a polar orbit at some point. Land at opposite poles, and then take off and return both home, is the idea here. That's the overall mission concept, and let's take a quick look at the craft we've designed for this. Now, we know that Jeb, Bill, and Bob lost all of their skills from their slight mishap that they may have had. And I want to do, let's see, not the orbital science machine. I want... Did I fail to save the previous craft? No, the Moonlander here. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Okay. For a second there, I was concerned. This should be fine for returning. The main thing that I'm wanting to think about is, should we add in a remote vehicle here? So something that is able to hold, not an SAS, but a remote pod here. Something like the Prototype Hex that is able to hold at least prograde and retrograde. That'll make things a lot easier. It won't be able to hold the maneuver node, but that would be fine. We could toss in a Prototype Hex here. That would add a little bit of weight into this stack. But I think it should be more than fine, right? Like, this is 1.63 thrust to weight. We should have plenty of overkill in our fuel here, especially with dropping off those heat shields here. So I think it should be reasonably fine to do that. That means that Jeb, Bill, and Bob having lower amounts of experience is not a bad thing. I think I'm going to mix and match these, though. We'll bring Staney the criminal and Jeb. And then we're going to bring Bob here. And then for our other craft, we'll bring Valentina, Bill, and Luke. Just to mix things up a bit, split up Valentina and Staney. We're not entirely sure that they're not in league with each other, right? So I want to split them up and do something kind of like this. Beyond this, I want to check our staging. I think we should be pretty much good to go here. Scroll up at this point, and this staging is a little awkward. We would need to move this guy on out. Those are the drogue chutes. Yeah, those are the drogue chutes. So that's fine. And then we would move the main chutes out over here. This decoupler would happen here. And then this decoupler we'd never use. Okay, so something along the lines of this. Now, how do we think we're going to do as far as wiggleness? That's a technical term. As far as the stability of this, it should be fine, honestly. I don't think we're going to have any weak joint here. If we really wanted to be safe, what we would do is, and I think we should be safe, we would get a strut connector that would be in bilateral symmetry, and we would connect this up to here, about like that, just to shore up this joint. Through the early portions, anyway. So it'd be something like this, and we'd need to send up two of them. They would have to rendezvous in lunar orbit, according to this contract here. So we need to dock them together on or around the moon and transfer crew members around. So once we get to the moon, we can swap like Luke and Bob. That should be fine. No problem whatsoever there. And then once Luke and Bob are swapped, then we can do our landing from there. Should be easy enough. Now, the viewer contract that Robin Pattenall gave us here indicates planting a flag as close as possible to both the North and South Poles. I'm not sure if there's any sort of an indicator that we can read for where exactly those poles are, but we can land fairly close to them, at least. And that would be reasonably fine. So, we're going to need to get into a polar orbit, and we have crews to deliver here. The question is, do we target a polar orbit from the outset? Well, step one is getting into a Kerbin orbit. Yeah, I think we can do that. We can go for like a high orbit for our first one, and then a lower orbit with our second one. And then we can intercept the second with the first and do it like that. It's going to be 2 identical ships that we do this with. And we're going to lift off here. And off we go. Grab our EVA report. No, we're not going to grab the EVA report right now. Burn time here of about 45 additional seconds. Looks good. We should start getting horizontal speed here. And our SRBs have gimbaling, so this shouldn't be any real problem. I think I'm noticing maybe a little bit of wobble here, but it should be fine. All things considered. Okay, we've got about 32 seconds on our SRBs here. I pulled us back a little bit there because I was slightly concerned about the aerodynamic situation, but it appears to have recovered. Okay, now I'm just going to lock to prograde. We've got about 15 seconds here, and we're just working on our horizontal speed. We do need a little bit more horizontal speed than that, and by a little bit, I mean a lot. We need a lot more horizontal speed, but our SRBs are going to be detaching shortly, and we're punching up through the atmosphere at a pretty reasonable speed. 40 kilometers right now. SRBs detaching in 3, 2, 1, 0. There go the SRBs. Okay, so we do need to get a little more altitude. I don't love the plasma sheath that we've got going on here, but I do note that our apoapsis is reasonable. So at this point, we're going to try to head over to the horizon. Yeah, this is pretty manageable. I like it. Cool. And now we're just getting horizontal speed. And to be honest, we can coast from here. That's reasonably fine. So at this apoapsis, we would look to circularize. So something along the lines of this, although I don't love that timing. That's a little bit better. Yeah, it's close enough. Cool. And we would just wiggle our way on over here. Fantastic. So we're going to get a little bit of extra thrust to weight by coasting. And this burn time is going to be slightly different. Very slightly. Yeah, 1 minute 45. Sure. This looks good enough. So we're going to head back over slightly here. We've overshot our maneuver node a little bit, but we'll warp forward, killing our physics in the process. Excellent. And we'll warp forward a little bit further. 40 seconds. 30, 20, 10, and 2, 1, mark. Remember, we don't need to get into a perfect orbit here, just a good enough orbit. We were definitely a little too shallow on our gravity turn. And we can adjust that with our next flight a little bit. All we're looking to do for this flight is deliver this into a decent orbit. So, we're going to detach our primary booster here shortly, and that will not remain in orbit. That's still suborbital. Cool. And this will be more than enough to get us into orbit and get us to the moon and do a lot of maneuvers around the moon and probably most of our moon landing as well. It's, there's a lot in this stage. No doubt about that. So we're wiggling a little bit. I'm just correcting our trajectory ever so slightly here. Okay, there we go. We'll hold there for the moment. About 45 seconds of burn time here, and I am going to physics warp some of this. Yeah, we're holding on the marker pretty well here. It is starting to drift now, and so we're coming out of physics warp. Cool. Entering orbital mode. And at this point, I mean, let's get that extra little bit of altitude here. We want to burn kind of radially at this point. We're a little off in terms of timing. So I'm just taking us over to the radial marker here. We just want to burn basically straight up, is what we want. We're now in orbit, and we're just evening out our orbit. We don't have to keep doing this. It's fine. This is good enough. So we can leave that be and keep some extra fuel for our transfer. Now, I think we will target a polar orbit on the moon. So if we head on over like this is, of course, an equatorial orbit. Right? But we can adjust that here by bringing this in to be... we're going to need to change the timing on it. About like this. And then we're going to need to push it out a little bit prograde. That's equatorial there, but we can bring it on around about like this and bring it into a polar orbit. Cool. Something along the lines of this. Now, we don't need this to be this big of an orbit. Or rather, this low of an orbit. But we could have this be, you know, somewhere up here. But that's additional delta V, and we're going to be going by faster. So I don't actually want to be doing that. We can potentially bring this around to be going... Yeah, I don't like that either. So we're going to bring this around to about here. Targeting something along the lines of this, but I don't quite love our angling there. That's close. And then we can target around 200 kilometers here. So something along the lines of this-ish. We can adjust this angling later. Yeah, we can see that this is a little bit off. Definitely. Timing would change that a fair amount. We've kind of completely wrecked the timing here. Okay, we've completely destroyed this timing. Let's adjust this a bit. Out over here. Okay, there we go. We got that timing slightly better. And let's get this readjusted. We can definitely see that that's pretty off. That's a little bit better. Okay, so something along the lines of this, right? We can always adjust the actual inclination later to target a slightly better inclination. And I think that's what we're going to end up having to do once we get there. So we've got plenty of delta V for it. So I think we're just going to target a 200-kilometer orbit. Any higher than that is a huge amount of extra delta V. You can already see that we've got a fair amount of extra delta V from a standard equatorial lunar transfer here, but that's fine. And let's get ready for this burn. We've got so much extra delta V in this thing, I'm not concerned about it. So we'll get in position here like so, or approximately in position anyway. Warping on around. Cool. And we will angle this direction a little bit further and continue to warp. Cool. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. So off we go. This is going to be a 2-minute burn, apparently, and I would like to physics warp it a bit. We'll see how we go for holding this attitude. Okay, we're drifting off, so we need to make a correction. Cool. We'll hold here for a moment. Seems reasonably fine. But I think that we are drifting off a little bit. So we'll recorrect this. This thing does like to wiggle around. No doubt about that. Okay. We'll hold here for a bit, and now we've got about 10 seconds of burn left. So now we can just chill here on 1x time warp. 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Approximately. About 2 meters per second off. It's probably fine. Yeah, we'll call that good. Okay, so we are here now. That should be good enough. We can do a retrograde burn here. Not a prograde burn. A retrograde burn to circularize that. And we're definitely going to want to change our inclination a little bit here, I think. I don't think that's going to be exactly what we want, but it's fine. For now, we want to warp to here. So off we go to the moon. Here we come, moon, on a slightly strange approach. We'll enter the sphere of influence of the moon now. And this will, of course, become our reference orbit for our next flyer. We can actually grab our mystery goo observation and material study here. We shouldn't need to grab it on the other one, but we probably will anyway, just to be safe. We can grab those, we can collect that data, and then Bob is going to EVA here. And Bob is going to head over this direction. We'll restore our Science Junior. I don't think we need to grab another one, especially if we're going to do this again on the twin flight. So we'll just grab on and hop in. There we go. Cool. We'll align for this burn. Where's the moon at right now? There it is. Cool. So we'll align for this burn, and we'll grab our in-space low data as well once we're in position for that. Overshooting here a bit and just working on getting that fixed. There we go. Cool. We'll warp on in. Yeah, we're still getting in-space high data here. That's fine. And we're over the poles right now. We're definitely going to land in a polar region. I don't know exactly where yet. As close to the pole as possible. 20. At least as close as possible for me, anyway. 4, 3, 2, 1, and mark. This is a pure retrograde burn, so we might as well just lock retrograde. That's a 40-second burn, and we'll get this set up here. What is our inclination? 91.7. So we do need to change our inclination by a few degrees here. We don't actually care about being, like, in line with Kerbin here. All we need to do is pass over the pole, right? Which we can see that, like, this right here would be the pole. So that's fine. 15 more seconds of burn time here. And we'll just need to hit our inclination pretty precisely here at 90 degrees. Okay, this is good enough. So that'll do. Now, of course, we need to go... Where would that be? Around here? And then we would need to just make slight changes. That is way more of a slight change than we need. So let's bring that inclination back up to... Whoa, okay, that changed a lot. Let's not change that much, please, KSP. I want to put this at exactly 90. Okay, that's 90.1. There we go. That's 90.0. Cool. So we'll align for that. And we just want to change our inclination here. I don't care about any of these other markers since we're going to be landing on the poles. We just have to be passing over the poles, right? So a purely polar orbit of 90 degrees, a 180-degree orbit also would have functioned. But we'll just warp on over. Please don't do that. Not while we're in space high. Cool. So this is going to be a 1-second burn. I'm going to thrust limit this as soon as this is over, down to like 1% thrust right now. No, that's a 2-minute burn. Down to like 40% thrust. That's a 3-second burn. Down to like 20% thrust. Okay, I'll go for like 15. Yeah, that's an 8-second burn there. That looks good. We'll warp forward a little bit here. 20 seconds. 10 and 3, 2, 1, mark. Beautiful. Okay, just getting that tiny little bit extra here. We're at 90.1 degrees right now. That's 90.0. So that'll do. That is our reference orbit for our next flight. And we're fairly circularized. We can see that our eccentricity is quite low, so that's good. At this point, of course, we need to put our next craft into orbit. So we're going to go back to the Space Center. And we're going to launch this thing again. Well, its identical clone again. And we're going to try to hit a slightly more efficient ascent trajectory this time. We know that we need to flatten out quite a bit more, so that would be absolutely fine. As soon as we get loaded in here, we'll hop into the VAB. And we are going to launch this again, this time with Valentina, Bill, and Luke. Perfect. So we'll launch them. Technically, this one could do with getting rid of the Probodobodine core, because Valentina has the skill to do that. But I think we'll leave it for parity on how we feel on various things like re-entry. Thrust to weights, things like that, so that it feels the same. So we're going to throttle this up, and off we go. Beautiful. This time I'm going to start turning at about 70 rather than 100 meters per second. There we go. We'll get ourselves some nice gravity turn going on. We do need to punch up through the atmosphere, a fair amount, of course. But our thrust to weight should be plenty high to go sideways fairly quickly. Should be reasonably fine. How long do we have on our burn time here? Okay, another 25 seconds. Sounds good. We're just continuing to head on over here. Picked up a bit of a wiggle there, so I dropped off a little bit. Okay. We're going to lock to prograde shortly here. Okay, we're locking to prograde. We've got 10 seconds, actually 8 seconds left on our SRBs. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, slightly off, mark. Cool. So we're at an apoapsis height of about 60 kilometers right now. That's looking good. We do want to punch up through the atmosphere a little bit more here. We've got a plasma sheath going on. Going to go over into stability assist, though, and we're going to head directly to the horizon. We want to pick up some more horizontal velocity here. Cool. So there we go, picking up horizontal velocity, and we'll just burn here until we're at about 100 kilometers. We're still going to have a coast phase. Naturally. And I'm going to go to like 103. There we go. So that'll do for now. We've got our coast phase ongoing, and we're going to add our maneuver here to circularize. Beautiful. Something along the lines of that will do the trick. We'll get zoomed back in here and head on over to our maneuver node. We're going to be out in space very shortly. About 5 kilometers to go on that front. Cool. And we're now officially in space. Burn time of 1 minute 18 seconds. I'm trying to rotate us back here. We're very heavy for this booster, for our poor little SAS to turn this booster. It's very tough, but we'll just get into position here. 1 minute until our circularization burn. Cool. 20 seconds. 10. And 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. I knew that I would be overshooting this marker ever so slightly there. Yeah, this thing really doesn't like to turn with this on here. I'm not shocked about that, to be clear. That's fully expected. So we're getting that horizontal speed nicely. And off we go. Once again, suborbital when this detaches. But only a little bit of speed to get us orbital here. This should be more than fine. Cool. So that's our reference orbit. We can come in slightly higher with this orbit. It'll be a little bit more delta V, but that's fine. And then we can intercept and dock in polar orbit of the moon. But that's going to be a next episode sort of thing. It is time to put a cut in here. So once we are in orbit with this craft, we will go ahead and do that, and we'll do our docking next episode for sure, in the orbit that we've already established. And then from there we'll have to do our landings. and then our returns. So it's going to be at least one more episode, I'm guessing close to 2, to get this mission done. Maybe even 3, we'll see. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible. I was a little late on switching that over because of the shutdown timing there. Slightly awkward. But a very special thank you to all of the channel members, including ALS Gamer, James, Shadow Wolf, MLohan80, Ro Corvid, Kentogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Anna the Elephant, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.